Gentlemen, I'm here with my buddy Hal Elrod, and I'm thrilled about this conversation for many reasons. But one, just time with Hal is good time almost every time. And we were just laughing and telling stories. And this has been happening since we jumped on Zoom. And I said, we probably should just be recording all this because this would be an awesome way for people to just hear how it is when Jon and Hal are doing life together. And that's what I want for this show. So we're going to try not to change a lot. We're going to just do life together again. But the spirit of this conversation is to talk about front row dads, where we were, where we are, and where we're going, because Hal has been part of the journey the entire way. And not only that, but Hal's been part of my entire adult life. So, if we go back decades, Hal and I began our journey together. We've done different adventures together. We've raised families kind of side by side in the world. And I want that to be a part of this conversation because truly that's the spirit of it all. I hope in my heart that everybody finds a Hal. I've said that before. I hope everybody finds a Hal in their life, somebody they can lean into, somebody that their kids call uncle, somebody that they love. And it doesn't matter who they are. If you feel like they are the person for you, then lean into that individual. And so I hope you feel that today. I hope you hear the friendship that we've had for years, but I also hope you learn about front row dads because we get a lot of questions right now from people that would, members that say, hey, I've got a buddy. He wants to learn more about front row dads. Can you hop on the phone with them? At this point, honestly, I can't hop on the phone with most people and talk about front row dads like I used to be able to, because the community is well over 300 people operating in almost a dozen countries. And we've been now operating for about 8 years. And I just don't have that opportunity. But what I can do is walk through the story of, again, where we were, where we are, where we're going, and tell you enough about front row dads so that if you're listening to this because you're interested in finding a community that will help you level up as a dad, will help you be the best husband, father, businessman, community leader, and really honestly just to feel the best that you can feel as an individual. We created the community for guys like you who want to pursue more, something deeper, something more meaningful, something that aligns with your core values. And I think that's a perfect way to tee up Hal here and to welcome him into this conversation, because when we talk about a guy who you align with values, you have fun with, that, cares about your family, you care about his family. That's my buddy Hal. So, dude, are you ready for this?
Johnny Vroman, man, when you said decades, I'm like, I don't think it's been decades. And then I did the math. I'm like, oh, I think we've been friends for like 23 years or something.
Yeah,
That's crazy, man. That's over half of my life and not quite half yours.
Dude, it's a long time.
Pretty close.
And what I think is like you've been a part of some of the best years of my life. I mean, we look back, overall over that time and kind of the big chapters and the big pieces. And we've laughed and reminisced and talked about those different pieces. Some of the highlight moments, like, sitting in the Lancaster Host Resort Hotel in the lobby, watching you write the Miracle Morning book. Literally, like, wasn't even out. And then to the birth of your children, to some of the more difficult parts of your journey, going through cancer, all of it, dude. It's just, there's so many pieces of it, but it's been a real privilege, and that. And there's a reason that we're talking today, because of all the people that I could be having this conversation with, I wanted to have this conversation with you because you've been such a critical part of my personal and professional life.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm honored and I'm excited and I'm looking forward to it because, again, every time we get to connect, it's a good time. And Front Row Dads is something that both of us are really passionate about. My memory of Front Row Dads starting was I literally can picture where I was driving on Highway 71 going home to Lakeway and talking to you. And I'm going to paraphrase, of course, but it was something along the lines of, hey, I've realized that, family is the most important thing. I think we would all agree to that. And you said, I'm trying to figure out how can I align my work with my family. And you said, I think I'm going to start a dad's group. And not because I'm an expert at being a dad, you said, but because I want to bring men together like-minded men, and to share, to support each other, share what we're going through, our challenges. And you said, I have so much to learn, myself, but somebody's got to create this container for entrepreneurial dads who are hard charging and, work really hard. And business is so all consuming sometimes in terms of our mental energy, our physical capacity, right? Like that we all say family's our number one priority, but very often if we look at our schedule, I think you pointed out, like it's often there's a misalignment. And so, yeah, that was, I remember the birth of Front Row Dads. And then we had our first event in Philadelphia. And, I think we were at like a pub or something in like the back room. It definitely wasn't the caliber of the Front Row Dads events that I go to now. But yeah, man. So that's my version of the story, but you're the creator of the Front Row Dads. Jon, tell me about this. What was the journey? Where were we? How did you start this? What was the inspiration or the desperation that prompted you to the realization? And then what was that realization?
Dude, thinking back to so many of our conversations over the years, like we loved talking about our mission. Like we loved it. And even to this day, I mean, was it 2 days ago or whatever? I'm driving with Tiger in the car, and you're on speakerphone, and you're telling me about this new supplement that you're taking. And when we're done, I say to Tiger, I go, dude, this has been the last 20 years of my life. You just got witness to like the countless conversations that are like that.
Yeah.
And so we never had a hard time talking about business and the pursuit of what we wanted to create. What we needed to introduce was more of the conversation around marriage and parenting. We needed to just bring that in. And like most things, and what you've done with your life, you do that with great intention. I mean, that's really, of course, the core of the Miracle Morning. It's like, how do I set up my day to win? And what we hadn't done, I don't think collectively, let me just say, I'll raise my hand, not to say, I'm not going to weave anybody else into this but me.
Yeah, stop projecting, dude. Keep going.
I had not done that with my family. I really believe that the way I could be a great dad is to show my kids like how to give through Front Row Foundation. And that was the way, if I wrote the book, that would be the gift to the kids. But the thing I was missing was really showing up and being more present for my family. That was the thing. So I needed to change the conversation that was happening. So back in 2016, that's what happens. We get 30 guys together in Philadelphia. You're there, and other friends of ours that, are OGs and Front Row Dads are all in the room. Mike McCarthy was there. I think about John Ruhlin,
Berghoff, yeah.
So many of our great friends, Adam Stock. And we just had this amazing couple of days together. And then that's, I don't know, 15 or so retreats ago. And that was the beginning of it all. And there were a couple of moments that triggered all that, like the one where Tatiana had come to me with really a plea for me to show up more at home. And I'm grateful that she did. I'm grateful that she, in many ways, called me out in a way that I had been so busy being a moment maker for the rest of the world that I really wasn't being the best moment maker that I could for my family. And you probably saw that. You probably saw that from your perspective from me.
I'm not very perceptive like that. I would have just said, I think Jon's a great dad. I don't know. Right. Or like going back to the business conversation that most men seem to have more than talking about family. Rob Riggle's got that stand-up routine where he talked to his best friend for 3 hours, and his wife goes, "How are the kids?" And he goes, "I don't know." "Well, how's his wife?" "I have no idea." "You guys were on the phone for 3 hours. You haven't caught up in like 6 months." He's like, yeah, we talked about the superficial business and this and that. And so I wanted you mentioned that Tatiana kind of called you out, and I wanted you to elaborate on that a little bit more, because I know, I think the call out, and tell me if I'm wrong and elaborate as needed, but it was that something along the lines of like, you put so much energy and time and effort and creativity into your business. Like, where is that for your family? Speak on that.
Yeah, well, there was a couple of things that happened around that time. There was this moment where somebody had asked me what I do, and my reaction was to talk about the business and the charity and things like that. And that's when I personally had the discovery of like, I want to be a family man first and then a
Yeah.
businessman. I'd like to say, when somebody goes, what do? You go, well, I'm married and have kids. And when I'm not doing that, I happen to do these other things
Yeah.
versus like my identity is I'm this business guy. And then I happen to have a family. That's an
Yeah.
afterthought.
Yeah.
So I really wanted that to change. And right around that time, I was traveling all over the world, speaking. Like you and I were both on a lot of stages. And when I looked at my calendar and I looked at my desktop on my computer, there was a folder for everything I wanted to accomplish, except there was nothing for my family.
Mm.
There was no Google Doc that had the family vision. Plenty of
Yeah.
business vision, plenty of charity vision. I was getting people together, having all these conversations, but not for the family. And so that just became obvious that my calendar, if it's a reflection of your values, is not representing family man with a business. That was not it.
Yeah.
So, the goal was to change the conversation. And dude, I'm curious for you, man, like aside from the fact that you support what I do and you're my buddy and you'll oftentimes show up because it's like you want to support me.
Sure.
Why did you say yes to that first event? Why did you carve out time? How was that experience for you, back in
Yeah.
2016?
I mean, I'll say I probably said yes to the first event because you're my buddy and I was going to support you no matter what you did, right? But I've said yes to many events after that, uh, and I don't, I really don't go to a lot of events anymore. And Front Row Dads is one of the only ones that I go to, and and it really is the sharpening of the axe, right? It's like, and there is that dilemma. There's always that dilemma in Front Row Dads. We always talk about it like, okay, wait, so you're leaving your family.
Yeah.
So you can be better for your family, but it's like the old man in the parable of the axe, right?
Yeah.
He's sitting down on the log, not doing the thing because he's going to get better at it, right? And then the result is exponential when you go back home. Some of these paradigm shifts, some of the things that you learn at the retreats. And so, I think the evidence is in, I believe I've brought more people into Front Row Dads than any other person.
Yeah, it's true.
Part of that's because I'm competitive against Justin Donald, the number 2 guy.
Let's be honest.
The number 2 guy. But it's the only thing that he's number 2 to me in life. But anyway, but anyway, so I mean, I rave about it. And to your point, you just said it, right? Like the other day I called you, I'm like, oh my gosh, John, I'm taking this supplement. It's amazing. And you used to say sometimes when I'd call you about something like that, you go, wait, dude, are you selling this now?
Are you part of the, where's the affiliate link?
Is this multi-level? What are you doing? Right? I'm like, no. It's just amazing. You're like, oh, I totally thought you were being paid for this. Right. But that's why I'm probably the number one for Front Row Dads. Because when I believe in something, I talk about it a lot. Yeah. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite testimonials or testimonies, I guess, for Front Row Dads is our friend Tucker Max. And if anybody knows or, Tucker, if you don't know him, Tucker's one of the smartest people you'll ever meet. He's also, because he's very smart, like a lot of very smart people, he's one of the most skeptical people you'll ever meet, right? And I invited him once to Front Row Dads to our retreat in Florida. And, and Tucker, I mean, built a multi-million-dollar business, had an exit for, I don't know, probably 8 figures. I don't know all the numbers, but a very successful guy. And he went to Florida to the retreat. And, I know you told me what he said. He came to me and said, Hal, this was, better than you even sold it as. And he went to you and said, John, I've gone to a lot of events. I've gone to $100,000, coaching programs and Tony Robbins events and this and that. And he said, this is the best event I've ever been to. I was standing there when he told you that. And I was like, man, if you can convince Tucker, who has like he's the hardest person to get to say, like, oh yeah, that was good. He's always like, yeah, it could have been better. So I just think that, and he's just one person. My best friend, Jeremy Caton, I brought to Front Row Dads. My other closest friend, Matt Recor. I mean, I've got all my best friends, my colleagues, Ryan Levesque. I mean, all of these people, I've been like, if Front Row Dads comes up or being a dad comes up in a conversation with somebody, just being a dad, I go, dude, do you know about Front Row Dads? No. Oh my God. And then I just explained how it's been transformative for me and for my marriage and for my relationship with my kids. And none of that's perfect. It's always a work in progress, but the greatest resource I have as a North Star for me to be the best family man that I can be is Front Row Dads.
Dude, when I think about our evolution, just the two of us, but I hope that's the representation of what everybody can get from this community. It's what I want for people. is that we can't know everybody. Like we can't know every member. We can't hang out with every member. We can't hang out with everybody in our community, everybody that we ever meet, that we ever love. We can't just, it doesn't work every day. But dude, like, you know, our band, so, you know, and for anybody who doesn't know what that is, the band is the small group. So 4 to 8 guys typically in Front Row Dads. Speaking of Ryan Levesque, he just went on a hiking adventure with his band, which was
Nice.
awesome. And our band gets together, since we're local here in Austin, and we meet and we talk and we go deep and we talk about what's happening in our lives, the good stuff and the bad stuff. Um, that to me is like the number of conversations that we've had that focus around our kids, that focus around parenting, how I've watched you pour in to fatherhood. I do think that it's because collectively we made an agreement. It doesn't matter if it's Front Row Dads. Like if somebody went and found another dads group that's awesome for them, then great, good for you. Like it doesn't have to be here. But I do think that getting together with other people with a specific intention, and if you're a father, what's more important than your family? But dude, it's like, I think of little things. You're a Miracle Morning routine. You decided that you were going to read a parenting book as part of that morning routine. I remember that breakthrough for you.
Yeah.
I remember watching in your movie, in the Miracle Morning movie, you having, like, the part I always cry at is when you talk about your family. When you're in the hospital room, you're on the bed and you're talking about your family and the affirmations you have, wanting to be there for your family. I cry every time. Every time I see that. I literally can't hold back. That to me, dude, watching you integrate, like writing it into your affirmations, making it part of your reading, making it part of your life, like even partnering on the book with the Miracle Morning for parents and families, you know, that type of stuff. There's a track record now of the last 8 years that I see, and I want to honor you for that, because I hope that's what happens to most men, is there's an integration period. Like your business is still crushing. Like the, you know, your app is crushing, the book is doing well. You just came out with another book, like, or an updated, expanded version. All that's crushing, and yet you're the best dad you've ever been. So part of why I wanted to have this conversation with you too is you're the model, man. In so many ways, you're the model of like winning in all these areas, winning in all these areas. And it hasn't been super easy for you. Like we said, it's like you've gotten your ass kicked along the way with some real shit.
Yeah.
And man, it's, yeah, the more I think about it, I'm like, oh yeah, dude, you are I get, like, not everybody is a best-selling author around the world. Like, you know, I'm not a best-selling author around the world. But I just want to say that even with all your celebrity and all your accomplishments, watching you have a very real life, down to earth life, has been really awesome. You know, so thank you for what you've done to help grow it.
Yeah, man. Thank you for those kind words. You know, something that came up for me is you mentioned whether you're, you know, it doesn't need to be Front Row Dads. It could be a different dads group. And I'm sure there's other great dads groups. I think what's unique about this and what was smart of you, and it took a lot of exploration, a lot of conversation, is you're like, who's this group for? Like, who, you know, there's a lot of dads out there, right? Like if you're a dad and you work the night shift, you're going to have different challenges that are right, that are in common with that person. And what was great is I think you looked at yourself and your friends and you're like, okay, we're all entrepreneurs that are running businesses. And then you thought that's who this is for, you know, and you thought, and you realized too, that those, if you're an entrepreneur, you're running a business, and we do have a lot of people in the group that aren't entrepreneurs, right? So, I mean, I feel like that, you know, we've got some doctors and some lawyers and some, although I think
They
most
have
of them
the
have their own
entrepreneurial mindset. They have
entrepreneurial mindset. Yes. But the point being that having this like-minded group of people who are sharing similar challenges, like, yeah, I'm trying to run a business, which requires so much of my mental and emotional capacity. Like it's maxed. How, you know, and then you meet these dads and they're like, hey, I was where you are, man. And here's what I did. And, you know, and I've kind of systematized and figured out. And oh my gosh, phenomenal. I've got a 14-year-old daughter, which is different than parenting my 11-year-old son. Very different. It's also different from parenting my 14-year-old daughter when she was 12. Like 14 is, I mean, I'm in it right now, man. It's intense, you know? But another thing I want to share in with that like-minded group of people that are sharing similar challenges, and the value in that is something that you and I have been doing with each other, and I've done it with 2 other Front Row Dads, is I call it co-parenting our kids together. And for anybody listening, this is, again, whether you're part of Front Row Dads or just like apply this in your life, here's what this looks like. This is where you find dads of your child's friend, right? So my daughter and John's son are good friends. Tiger and Sophia are good friends. And then there's another Front Row dad, Chris Bardick, and Chris's daughter and my daughter are friends. So I have been coordinating with the two of you to set up daddy-daughter double dates, right? So me and you and Tiger and Sophia went to K1 racing, and then we went out to dinner, right? And it's funny. Well, here's a little ninja strategy. Don't let your kids hear this because like the behind the scenes stuff, but it's where you identify like, hey, what are things that you would love to do with your kids that are maybe good for them, like go for a hike or spend some time in nature or eat healthy food, right? That you cannot for the life of you get them to do because you're dad. Right. But then I'm like, hey, John, hey, how about we go K1 racing and then we try this really healthy restaurant that I've been trying to get Sophia to eat at, but she won't eat at it because dad's food, healthy, blah, blah, blah. Right. And she was like kicking and screaming, but we went. She was like, oh my gosh, this is really good. I want to go again. So the point is, John and I, you and I discussed our values around like that we have things we want to do with our kids, values we want to instill, and then we're setting up activities, we're having conversations that support that. And I've got another Front Row dad, Ed Sexton, his son and my son are friends. They're both 11. And, we've got them doing basketball together and jujitsu, and we're, and it's like Ed and I are having our friendship, right? And then it's also more fun. And you said something, the last thing I'll say on this, you said something when we went on the double date the last time, and you said, Hal, another thing that I didn't anticipate that's really cool about this is when we're having one-on-one time with our kids, although it's valuable, they're still looking at us. You're my dad. I'm your son. They're in that context. But you said right now, they're seeing you and I be buddies and be jovial and be friendly and have fun. They're like, oh, my dad's super cool. And this other dad, there's a little social proof. This other cool dad, John Vroman, also thinks my dad's cool. Like maybe dad's a little cooler, like he's letting his hair down, right? So I just think there's like, that is one of my favorite parts of Front Row Dads has been this, and it's only in the last, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months, this like co-parenting strategy that I would encourage anybody listening to apply. And of course, if you're in Front Row Dads, you've got this hand-picked group of vetted, like-minded fathers that that you can coordinate with.
So now everybody's experienced what we talked about earlier.
Me selling somebody on a concept.
When Hal gets excited about something, that's it.
I read a review the other day on Miracle Morning audiobook, and they're like, he's too salesy. I'm like, this is just how I talk.
It's all the time. It never ends. It's one-to-one. It's it doesn't matter. But that's who you are, man. And I love that because what also is great is you don't hold back with something that you really believe in. You are very good at seeing the good in people. You've always been that way. Like, here's what I see is like so great about this person. And then you become an advocate for that person in their life. Doesn't mean they're perfect. It's just, you see the good. And I think that's a really positive thing. One thing I want to mention also, it just hit me, is this idea that dad is not a season. Dad is not a season. It's a forever thing. I'll take that right from the Front Row Foundation, right? This dad is a forever thing, because what happened early on, and I don't hear it as much now, but when Front Row Dads was getting started, it's like people who were older or had older kids would say, oh man, I wish I would have known about Front Row Dads before, as if their role as a dad is over. Yeah. But the truth is, I just think your role as dad only gets more important. Yeah. Only improves with time. I mean, my dad right now is on a hike 2 miles from where I record this. He's in from Virginia. He's staying in the guest house with my mom, and they're spending time with the family. And like, his impact on this family is profound. Your dad is awesome. And we all love your dad, and you love your dad, and you've talked about your dad. And like, he's still such an important part of your life, especially, I mean, I got a chance to see your dad in a whole different light when you were going through cancer, and how he showed up for you. I mean, he put his whole life into you. Like, you became, you're always important, but he knew that the level in which he wanted to serve and step up and connect and be there for you, because of that particular, that was a season.
Yeah.
but his dad role's not a season.
Yeah.
But how he showed up in that season was a little different.
Yeah.
And the reason I wanted to bring this up is because I think no matter what, like, is front row dads for guys with young kids, teenage kids, grown kids? The answer is yes. Dude, if you believe in your role as a father, if you believe in having men in your life, and at one see, and just like that, dude, you're one moment you're being mentored, and next
Mm.
moment you're doing the mentoring.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're right in the middle and not quite sure what's happening. Everybody's learning. But wherever you are in your life, if you're right at the very beginning of fatherhood, or you're well into your role as fatherhood, in your role as a dad, that is the perfect season to find your tribe.
Yeah. Well, I think what it would do, I'm obviously my kids are 14 and 11, right? But I'm just thinking, like, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, so like, what if I'm a dad and my kids are grown and out of the house? And I'm thinking that one of the things Front Row Dads does, which is infinitely important, is it's just a reminder that, like, hey, your kids, no matter what age, are the most important thing in your life, or maybe not the most important, but like, you are the most important thing. You've got to be there as a dad. And like you said, it doesn't end. And so to me, if I'm joining Front Row Dads and my kids are out of the house and I'm thinking, oh, my role's kind of over, I'm being reminded, wait a minute. Like, no, how do I, maybe I need to rekindle the relationship.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to
Yeah.
support in a different way. And what I love about Front Row Dads too is that there are dads at every stage of the game, including, kids that are in their 30s and have their own kids and now they're grandparents, right? And so there's always somebody to reach out to as a mentor. There's always a group of people that you can reach out to for support. Like for me, it's like, okay, I got a teenage daughter, guys. What do we do? And and one thing that I think is important is we've got so many ways to connect with, like, the Telegram groups. We
Yeah.
have Front Row. Like, I love that you did that. Front Row Dads Telegram groups for Front Row Dads Vibrant Health, Front Row Dads Parenting, Front Row Dads Marriage, Front Row Dads business, right? Like, there's groups, and having that mastermind with, and not just dads, but like most of these are extraordinarily successful entrepreneurs. Like, I'm at Front Row Dads with Ryan Levesque, who wrote the best-selling book Ask and the best-selling book Choose, and runs a 8-figure business, right? And if it's like, we're not just talking dad stuff. I'm like, Ryan, hey, dude, I got this launch coming up. Like, do you have like 20 minutes on a break that we could chat about this? Like, the access to the caliber of individual is pretty extraordinary.
Yeah. And somebody's a teacher in some way in all these categories. Like, even if somebody's not an 8-figure business owner, they likely have figured something out with marriage, or they figured something out with parenting, or they're incredible with their own emotional mastery. And everybody has something to offer and something that they need help with to receive. But you're right. Like, there's these different ways that the group connects. Telegram, these digital chat threads. I'm actually blown away by how active they are. Like,
Yeah.
every time I open up my phone, like right now, I just opened it. Here's what I'm looking at as I open this: the VIP thread. There's the band frontmen group. There's our band, the Blue Zone. There's the new member thread, announcements. Like, dude, there's a fun group, like just silly stuff that we don't want to post in the other stuff. There's
Yeah.
spring retreat coming up. Dude, the summer event. And it's just, it's so wild, dude. Our local volleyball group. And I'm blown away by the conversations that are happening in that space. Now, nothing to me, and I think you'd probably agree, nothing beats in person, face
Sure.
to face. Like, but that's like a great supplement, because you can't always hop on a plane and be at a 3-day retreat. But
Yeah.
if you got a quick question, you posted one just recently in there. And the level of vulnerability, honesty,
Dude.
giving, it's just remarkable. Here's
That's
another
one
question.
thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say the level of vulnerability in the group is extraordinary. People, how safe, what a safe container you've created or we've co-created. At the last retreat, on the first night, we did this like 40-minute breath work, which I was like, this isn't working. And then 10, 15 minutes in, I just started bawling my eyes out and like realized that I've never given myself like just all these crazy breakthroughs. And then I shared with the group and I'm crying, and people came up to me like, Hal, everything you shared hit me. Like, I could have said the exact same thing, and I felt like I wasn't embarrassed to cry, because there's lots of guys crying because everybody's being so real that you just don't get that, almost anywhere else.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask you, where do you get value in Front Row Dads? Because again, I know there's a love here of your brother John that you want to support, and that's great. I also really believe in my heart that there's real value you're getting from this group
Yeah.
outside of just the fact that you're still supporting me. But talk about whatever you want. Because again,
Yeah.
the unscripted here, but like, is it the band? Is it the retreats? Is it the threads? Is there something else that you have found to be particularly impactful that helps somebody else understand more about who we are?
Yeah. So I'll say the band, right? We meet once a month, four of us, and that's been invaluable to have really. In fact, the other night I wanted to go to this comedy show and there was a VIP booth and there were four tickets. So I'm like, oh, perfect. I'll just take my band. And of course, all three of you are out of town. So I'm going by myself. Like, hey, if anybody wants to go to a comedy show with me in June, ping me. But anyway, but I'm like, I mean, think about that. Of all my friends, and I've got lots of friends in different spots and whatever. My first thought was, oh, I've got 3 seats. I'm bringing my band. So I think that like as having that go-to group of friends, and some of our band meetings are just laughing and everything. Hey, anybody got anything you need to work on? No, life's good right now. Yeah, it's good, great, okay. And we just have a fun time. And then sometimes there's tears, and sometimes there's pain, and sometimes but it's the more I've talked to men outside of Front Row Dads, 2 things. One, they do not have a group of men that they would feel safe being totally vulnerable with, crying, talking about their deepest, challenges in their life. That's number one. And number two, and I think this is true for almost all men. I don't know why, but when we talk to each other, it is either about work or it is something superficial about sports or something that happened recently, right? It's very rarely about our family. And you think about that, what that does for a person, for a man, for a father, for a husband, if you're never talking about it, like whatever you're talking about is not only what's on the top of your mind, but it's what is important to you. And the importance of what you talk about is reinforced, right? So if you're not talking about your family, then A, your friend's not getting to know an important part of you. B, you're telling your subconscious, it's not really that important, I guess, if I don't even care to tell my best friends about what's going on at home, unless I'm complaining about my wife or something, right? So I think that piece of Front Row Dads, creating that space and that intention to talk about what I would imagine if I were in a room, and I've done this before when I ask entrepreneurs, hey, raise your hand if your family's the most important thing in your life. And every hand goes up for the most part. And then I say, put your hands down, raise them again. If I were to look at your schedule, if that would be obvious. And it's always like, the hands don't go back up, right? So if we really say family's most important, we've got to invest our time, our money, our attention, our energy, and our relationships into that priority if it really is going to be priority in our life.
Yeah. And I think that's an important piece too, because I think men are not accustomed to like, I've heard this objection. They're like, oh, I have to pay for friends.
Yeah.
No, I have to. And the answer is no, of course not. You should have lots of friends, but to have an organized environment, to have people that are on your team. Like if you had a family office manager, let's say if somebody had that, you have a CPA, you have somebody who's got your back with finances, you pay maybe a fitness coach, or you pay for coaching in a sport or another activity. You might hire business coaches. A lot of things we want to learn. We invest to have the right people help guide us, the right environment, the right structures around us. But it's not commonplace. It's not normal for men in the US or around the world to invest into their role as a family man. They think that's supposed to be natural. They're like, I'm just supposed to be great at that. Just because you decided to make a baby or sign a piece of paper with somebody and become married, that's going to automatically make you great at that. That requires perhaps the most amount of energy and effort, the most amount of collaboration. Like you need a team. You need a team around you. And there's lots of ways to get there. Front Row Dads is just one of them. But the key is to have that resource around you. So the way that, and I'll just say this, like it was wild today how I was talking to Don Hill. Do you know Don?
Of course, I love Don.
Yeah, Don Hill, amazing guy. I've known Don also for many years. We kind of grew up in the Vector Cutco world together, and we were laughing and talking about how much we've changed over the years. He was asking me questions about the growth of Front Row Dads, and I walked him through the whole story of like what happened with my speaking and when Front Row Dads started and when I went all in 2019, 2020, when I let go of all the speaking and we were just talking about like where Front Row Dads is now and when we invented the pillars and when the bands were created and like it was really awesome to think about how we went from like no staff to like 13 staff members for Front Row Dads right now. You know,
Yeah.
and it's now a 7-figure, like a lot of people don't like it's not just a dad's group, it's like it's a 7-figure business now.
Yeah.
And it's highly structured, online, in person, all these different avenues that we have to serve and support these men. And they're now serving and supporting each other. One of my favorite things that's we introduced this year are these deep dive calls. And dude, I don't know if you caught some of the deep dive calls through January and February and like, but it's like we're bringing in all the people that you're talking about and putting them in front of the group now, giving them a microphone, letting the group ask them questions. So Justin comes in to talk about investing, you know, and
Nice.
he does an incredible class on investing. And then, you know, even I'll circle back and I'll tie a few threads together. You know, people know Tucker's success with book writing. So they had, you know, he had hosted a call to teach people about writing and publishing books. And he just did it as a gift to the Front Row Dads. And dude, he brought in Charlie Hone into the
Nice.
conversation. And like, that's what constantly happens. And then I reach out to you and I'm like, hey, can we have a conversation to talk about where Front Row Dads is, and is going? And here we are. Like, dude, you've given a part of your day. That to me is like the evolution of where we've gotten to is we keep handing the mic to epic men.
Yeah.
And those men have such a heart of wanting to help other people get further along in whatever they're proficient at.
Yeah.
Awesome Aslam, dude who had a really big exit, you know, and didn't need to work again for the rest of his life. But dude opens up a bi-weekly conversation for free in the group to our members to say, ask me anything you want about business. And
Nice.
I'll help you to get your businesses rolling. He's built multiple 7-figure businesses and just like started giving his time. But that's what makes the group valuable. And I
Yeah.
was explaining to Don that it's been very intentional from the get-go. And we've talked about this a lot. Like I didn't want to position myself as the person people were coming to learn from,
Totally.
but that I want to be part of this. I want to be a member. I want to build the group I want to be a part of. And I just want a lot of people to own this. I want a lot of people to be facilitating, talking, sharing. It's very much voices matter in this space. If there's anything that came up for you, by the way, I'd love to hear how you've seen that, how you felt that, how
Yeah.
that, you know, you already have. I might be asking you to say the same thing you've already said, but if there's anything else on that, I wanted to get your
Yeah,
take.
no, there is one other thing that I wanted to share, and it's tied into what you're talking about, as well as your last question of like, where do I get the most value? And I mentioned the band, but you know, the online summits, I mean, they're the Telegram groups, the offline conversations, right? That might start in a Telegram group or at a live event. But honestly, if I had to pick what I like the best about Front Row Dads, and it's probably a pretty close tie with the band because there's such consistency with that. But it is every live event that you put on. Like you are, you know, masterful. Like I know you're not the sage on the stage or the guide on the side kind of thing, but you are masterful at plan, and your team, I should say. Rachel gets probably 80% of the credit. But you are masterful at putting on events unlike any other, where we are having like we're playing volleyball or basketball or like right like we're actually bonding as men, and we get literally 2 hours of the day to go to, you know, play basketball or soccer or volleyball or whatever that, you know, go for a walk or a hike depending on where we're at, right? Like that's some of, you know, that's some of the best time. But then the in-room time, like the breath work that y'all led us through on the first night. The speakers that you bring up, which almost all of them, the majority of them, are members of the group. You know, and then last time we had Brian Johnson, the author of Arate, like a week after his book published, he came and showed up. Great
Yeah.
dad himself. But I'm honestly, it's hard to even put into words, but the live events are unlike any other live events I've ever been to. And going back to what Tucker said after he went to his very first retreat in Florida, John, I've been to $20,000 events, part of $100,000 masterminds. This is the best event that I've ever been to. So yeah, man, between the events and the band, it's a close tie.
Dude, I think what we do is we gather. What Front Row Dads has figured out collectively, now there's a lot of people contributing to helping it grow, is we learned how to gather. We learned how to have great conversation. We created, like you said, the safety for that to occur. We gave an opportunity for the microphone to be passed around. And as a result of that, a lot of people have contributed to the growth. Yeah, we've had some amazing speakers, many of which are members of our community, but our network is, you know, our tribe, our brotherhood. That's where all the power is. That's it. So we have the 3 R's that we talk about in Front Row Dads. And I'm sharing this with everybody who's listening, like the relationships, resources, results, in that order. Relationships, number 1. Then we share the resources. When you build the relationship, somebody wants to give you the resource. They want to give you the keys to the kingdom. They want to give you the path. And then you get the result. But that's the order. First relationship, then resource, then result. And that's why I would say we're not a content company. We're not interested in pumping out tons of content, even though we do create that naturally. The content comes from the connections. It comes from the conversations. So we create content like crazy, but it all stems with like the real conversations that most men aren't going to have, focused around family first, right? Still crushing it in business. It's not about that. We don't want you, like, now, if your business needs to take a hit to save your family, to serve your family, so be it, right?
Yeah.
Let the business take a little hit, put your priorities in order. But, you know, done the right way, you should be thriving in all these areas. You should have your health. You should be present with your family. You should have a loving, passionate relationship with your spouse. You should be connected to your kids. You should be thriving in business, making lots of money, contributing to the world. That's what should be happening if we're doing it the right way.
Well, I think that the better you're doing at home, the easier it is to thrive at work, right?
Yeah.
When
Dude,
you're struggling
so true.
and stressed out at home and with your like
Oh.
it's hard to show up at your best for work. But when you leave the house and you know your wife's kissing, hey, goodbye, sweetie, have a great day at work, right? And your kids are love you, dad, right? You're like, I'm on top of the world, right?
Yeah,
And then you go thrive at work because there's no baggage that you're bringing into the office.
Yeah.
I wanted to say something that you said. And I thought of this earlier and it just came back for me. And I think this was that same conversation on Highway 71 when you first told me about Front Row Dads. You said, Hal, I realized that my kids aren't going to remember how many books I sold or how many speeches I gave or how much money my company made at any given moment or this year. They're going to remember how much time I spent with them, the quality of that time, the impact I made for them. And that resonated with me. It hit me. It's like, oh yeah, what am I doing all this for if on my deathbed, right? My kids are going, man, you were absentee, dad. You were always traveling and working and, glad your business thrived, buddy. Right. Like, I mean, and if you're listening, think about that for you, right? Think about where your priorities are between family. How much time, energy are you investing in learning, growing, evolving, connecting with other like-minded dads to be that for your wife or for your kids, versus how much you're putting into the work. And John, you said something earlier that I have a self-imposed rule, and I'm not perfect at it, but more often than not, I'm not allowed to read a business book until I've read a family book, a book on marriage or parenting.
Yeah.
And so it's in my schedule every day from 5 to 5:30, read a family book. Like that's in my schedule every day. And occasionally I'm like, I got this deadline and I miss it, but it's in there every day. And more often than not, I get at least 30 minutes of family reading in.
Dude, you don't know this, Hal. I don't think you know this because this has been hitting me lately. 2 days ago, I have a parenting book on my couch. It's part of my routine when I wake up. And dude, I've never connected this dot, but I remember you telling me that. And that has become part of my morning routine. Like I always read something for the family. So
Nice.
it's a great example of how when you do something, when you have a breakthrough, when you share it, when you tell me the story, it can immediately become part of my life. And it often does.
Yeah.
And I don't always connect the dots and I don't always give credit where credit's due. But like I can clearly see just when you said that one thing and like flashing two days ago to picking up the book. And I'm like, Hal always reads family first. I'm going to read family first. That's how that dot just got connected for me.
Yeah, that's
It's
awesome. And that
awesome.
just shows the power of being around like-minded guys that are
That's
working
it.
on being better for their families.
That's all we're trying to do.
So I think we talked about the history. We talked about where we're at right now. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to share in terms of what Front Row Dads includes right now, because we kind of bounced around from there are bands, there are online summits every week, there are live events, there are mastermind events, anything like you want to like bullet point that for anybody listening that wants to understand what do I get, or is that not necessary?
I think it's good to summarize that real quick, because here's what we've created is an opportunity to go to put your toe in the water or go all in, depending on the season that you're at in your life. Like if you've only got a couple of minutes, we got a pathway to help you with that. And if you've got a couple of days, we got a pathway to help you with that. If you can't hop on an airplane, we've got ways to do it online, digital ways, engaging ways, live calls, connections. We even have a one-to-one program where we'll connect you one-to-one with another person, right? With similar interests, similar goals, we have a structured program on these one-to-one calls. So it could be one-to-one. It could be an event with 125 people there, and there's something for everybody. That's what I would say. So we have a resource library where you can go watch all the calls that we've ever done, all in one place. I mean, that alone is worth 100 times the cost of admission. And I would also say we're not for everybody, but we are for a specific type of person. And that person is somebody that has wisdom, that's also wise enough to know there's more to learn. It is somebody that's likely an entrepreneur or a business owner. They don't have to be, but I think that everybody, the through line is they have an entrepreneurial mindset. And we also have, and we didn't cover this, but we have two levels in our community. And to make this easy for you to decide, you can only get in on level one. You can get in on level one. So you go to the website, there's an assessment there, there's information there on the Brotherhood, and you just follow the steps. And that will tell you how to get in. And once you're in, you can also then apply to level up. If you're like, man, this is my spot. And there's a group that we call the VIP group, and you can apply to become part of that group. And these guys they've been around, they're dedicated, they're committed, and this is a curated community. It is, and we have different types of people. We have introverts, we have extroverts, we have guys that are very different and similar in all the best ways. They believe in our core values. So our core values are curiosity, execution, and community. So can I be curious? Can I ask a lot of questions? Can I be willing to learn? Can I be willing to do something with what I learned? Can I go tip the lead domino and take action? And then can I share that with other people? Am I willing to do that in a community? Those are our three core values. So I think that we've covered, and it's less about what we do, and it's more about who we are. Because truly, what we do is world-class. It's amazing. All the stuff that we just shared, the threads, the in-person, the online, it's all world-class. It's all there. The most important thing is who, right? That's the part. So if somebody really doesn't know if it's the right group for them, they should listen to the podcast for a little while. They should listen to me and get a feel for my heart. They should listen to the people I'm interviewing and the members I talk to and get a sense of their heart. Are these men that you want to learn with and from? If they are, lean in. That's it. Lean in. So I think we've covered a good bit of and I'm probably missing something, but that gives people a sense of who we are today and how we're operating. Hundreds of guys, almost a dozen countries, and we gather and we have meaningful conversation and we help each other. So I always say there's no magic bullet. There's no silver bullet, but there are 300 some sharpshooters in your corner that when you become a front row dad, there's not a problem we can't solve collectively. Almost ever.
Yeah. Where are we going? Where's Front Row Dads? What's the future? What's your vision? Where do you see Front Row Dads heading?
Dude, first and foremost, I don't want to build a business that I hate. Like, dude,
Yeah.
that is the core of like, if somebody's like, what's your vision, John? It's like, if I can build a business and still put my family first, I
Yeah.
feel like I'm winning primarily. And I want guys to hear me say that, because guys would say, is Front Row Dads first for you? I'd be like, no.
Yeah.
How would I? No, it's not. It's my family comes first. So what I want to do, my personal vision is, dude, I hope there's thousands of members all over the world one day. Um, I envision a day when I'm not the CEO of Front Row Dads. I
Yeah.
love that thought of somebody else being CEO. I love the idea of being an organization operating in 100 countries around the world. The and I feel like we already are, uh, in a class of our own in a way.
I agree. Yeah.
And I think where we're going, my wildest dreams loves to play with that possibility. But dude, what I really want is, I never want to sacrifice the quality. The vision of Front Row Dads is to maintain the 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 small, brotherhood feel, no matter how big we get. There's always going to be one-to-one conversations. There's always going to be bands of 4 to 8 guys. There's always going to be smaller retreats of 20 to 30 or 40 people. There's always going to be events that are about 100 people. We're always going to have that on every level, community, local, but also global. We should have conferences with hundreds and thousands of people there.
Yeah.
And I think the Front Row Ads podcast will continue to gain momentum. I mean, we're at 300, 400 and some episodes in. We interview incredible people. Dude, as literally we were about to jump on, and you know who texted me was Gino Wickman.
Nice.
Texted me right before we got on about his new book that he's launching. And he's like, dude,
Shine.
dude, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think about like some of the people, like we just had Ben Greenfield come in and do live Q&A with our group. We have, anyway, I mean, the whole point is I'm not trying to just drop names to make myself sound more important.
Yeah.
I'm dropping the names because Front Row Dads is being supported by amazing people. And I think we're going to continue to reach and connect with amazing people and bring them into this community to let them teach. And I also want to say, this is the most important part, that my vision is that the amazing people are here. I don't want our group to think that all the power is outside of the group, that I don't subscribe to like, we just sit and listen to experts talk to us. Everybody in the group is an expert at something. They're a perfect person to be giving to their brother the story, the strategy, the next step that they need, by revealing themselves, by opening up their heart, by telling the truth about their life, the dark and the light, the bad and the good, all of it, the full spectrum. And that, by the way, I'm going to end on this, and I'll end this rant at least, or this thought on this, is this idea of, like, we've talked about this, a full range human. And the term, what I vision for the future for us, Hal, is solid men. That's what I want. Dude, I want our community to continue to attract and create and cultivate a solid man who is both soft enough to cry and empathize and feel his way through life, to dance his way through life, to loosen up a little bit, to be joyous and happy, and all of that soft side. I want that man also that has knowledge of his rage and his anger and his fight and his warrior, and that guy that, if needed, can be tapped into, that he is aware of that side of him. This full range person, where the more outstretched we can become, the more expansive we can become. Dude, I see an evolved man, not a perfect man, but an evolved man, a man who can join Front Row Dads to evolve as a man himself, but within his family, and then wants to contribute and pay it forward. So it's a it's a system that grows. Just like we look to nature and we say, how does that grow? How does that evolve? How does that expand? How do we deepen our roots and stretch our, our bear fruit from our trees? That's what I want. And I want it to happen in the healthiest possible way. I do not want to be at the epicenter of it all. I do not want front row dads to die when I do. I want front row dads to live on. I see a place where men can be like, I found my home away from home. I found a home that strengthens my house with my family. And I see a place also, Hal, this is the final thing. And I've shared this with you. I think the greatest gift a man can provide to his family ever in life is the assurance that should he ever die early, should he ever leave this planet before his family, that he has built a community of people around him, that he has poured into people, loved on people, helped other people succeed at such a level that if he were ever to die today, tomorrow, or any day into the future, that there would be an army of people, a brotherhood of men who would literally fight to be at the front door of their brother's house to take care of their family. I think the only way I can really I want to measure success is I have done such a good job of providing for my family the assurance, not life insurance, not millions of dollars, although they will get it if I go, they'll be taken care of financially. More importantly, dude, is a relationship with you where you'll check in on Tatiana, Tiger, and Ocean.
Yeah.
A relationship with Justin Donald where he'll check in on my family. A relationship with Dane where he'll check in. Tim will check in. And dude, if I can honestly say that those men will be there for my family if something were to happen to me, I feel like I've done some of my greatest work.
Yeah. Well said, brother. Well said. Well, if somebody listening to this, if the man listening to this, or the woman who knows the man, it feels like I feel aligned with this. I want to up level as a dad. Is it frontrowdads.com? That go there, check out the free resources, check out level 1, right? Would that be the next step?
Yeah. Go just take action. That's the biggest thing. Like if you're hearing this, like pay attention to your heart. And by the way, if your heart says no, keep looking. Like honestly, if you put your hand on your heart and you're like, nah, no, it doesn't vibe with me. Hey, no hard feelings. I get it. We're not supposed to vibe with everybody.
Yeah.
But dude, if you put your hand on your heart and you're like, man, I feel, I like what Hal and Jon are talking about. This feels right. What do you have to lose? And what do you have to gain? And I say, go take the action. And also, I think it's the type of community, Hal, where I would say, if somebody's really, really new, then yeah, listen to the podcast for a little while, maybe get on the email list, we'll contact you. But dude, if you're ready for the brotherhood, then don't wait. Yeah. Like the time is now.
Yeah.
Like we were talking about older men and things that they've taught us, the mentors, people. I've never heard a man, an older man, let's call him 70, 80, 90, whatever. I've never heard that guy go, my biggest regret is not making more money. And I spent too much time with my family.
Yeah.
I'm really sad about all the friends that I made. I think if I would have spent more time learning about crypto, I would have been.
Yeah. I wish I would have worked harder.
But all the time you hear that the best decisions they ever made were community, friends, family, pouring in, and do that, guys. And that wherever you go, whatever you do, whatever your next step is, go do that. But if it's frontrowdads.com, then let's go, let's link arms and make it happen.
Dude, I would love to see y'all at the next retreat if you're listening to this. And Jon, dude, thank you. I just want to acknowledge you before we wrap up. Thank you for your leadership, man. You are like Front Row Dads, as much as it's a co-created collaborative community. You spearheaded it, you started it, you fueled the fire, fanned the flame. Like, you have been, and at the way you show up at the retreat, the way you show up on the call, every aspect in the band at the retreats is extraordinary. And this group is a reflection of your vision and your leadership in a major way, man. So I want you to really receive that. You're great at deflecting praise and credit to those around you, but dude, what you've created I mean, I called you the other day. I think, yeah, I called you a few weeks ago. I just remember this, right? And I was like, John, like what you've created in Front Row Dads is incredible. The impact, you know, there's 330 dads. I think there's 800 plus kids. So 800 kids are being impacted that will then raise their own kids. And that, you know, yeah, man. And all because you got your priorities straight. And then you started an initiative to help other men do the same. So thank you.
Dude, thank you, man. I do receive that. I won't deflect that. I will take that to heart. And I will also just add to that by saying, dude, my dad's here. He's been here for 3 days visiting. And literally last night he sat at the kitchen table. This is 24 hours ago, not even. Sat at the kitchen table and he just looked at me and he's like, I'm so blown away by what you've done with Front Row Dads. And
Wow.
he said, talk about meaningful work. He goes,
Mm,
think about, and this is lit. I couldn't have made this up. I mean, I have to tell you this because it's so
yeah.
perfect to what you just said. My dad is sitting there as an almost 80-year-old man. And he's like, he goes, think about the impact. Think about the ripple effect. Think about all the kids from generations to come, because he has a speech that he does with me.
Mm,
And I know this is about his heart, because he's like, he tells me every time I see him, dude, every time. He's like, I did the best I could. And
mm-hmm.
he goes, I really believed that my role as a dad, by the way, every single time I see him, I really believed that my role as a dad was to provide. I know I did better than my dad did in that way. I think you're doing a better job than I did. And I think that's what's supposed to happen generation after generation after generation. And he was just like, every time he looks at me and he's like, I think there's something very special about a father-son relationship or a father-child relationship. And
Yeah.
that child wanting their dad's approval, to be seen by dad, to be approved by dad, to be loved by dad. And at the core of that, that I have my dad sitting there last night and I feel so fortunate. And then Don Hill said to me today when we were talking, he goes, you're fortunate to have your dad. And I go, you're so right. So guys, I just want to leave everybody with this, that if you're here and you're listening to this, you're a father, that whoever out there is looking up to you, looking into your heart, seeing you as dad, they need you. They
Mm,
need your absolute best. They need your vulnerability. They need your courage. They need your passion. They need your love. They need you to be a solid man for them. Not a perfect man, but a solid man. So that's my wish for everybody here, man, is that one day you get a chance to sit around the kitchen table with your kids and talk about the impact that they're having, and largely because you chose to have an impact yourself. So
yeah.
Hal, thanks for being in this conversation with me, man. I feel like this is a good place to land the plane.
Let's land it, brother. Love you. Front Row Dads for life, man. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Love you, bud.